Hello and welcome back to everyone on Respect and to AEW All Out 2025 out of 10. A huge show, over a dozen matches on the cards, including all of the big titles on the line, 5 championships in total, and a few big stipulation matches. So yeah, a lot going on this card. And we're going to start things off with the 0 hour with Hobbs and Joe taking on Henry and Anthony. Hobbs was dishing out body slams left and right. Joe got the win for his team in a short but entertaining bout with a Coquina Clash. Short and really not too surprising. So I'll give it 5 out of 10. Before we then moved on to Danny Garcia versus Shibata, Garcia came out with Shafir by the side. This was a fun, hard-hitting match that would have been right at home on the main card. Garcia tapped, but Shafir had the ref distracted. Garcia was able to get the win with a pole driver, followed by a nasty stomp to the head for the win. 6 out of 10. Gets his heel run going before the Conglomeration and Paragon join forces for a 6-man tag against the Frat House. A quick sprint that ended with Hologram getting the win for his team. Gets a 5 out of 10. Probably wasn't as good as the last match. And then finally, the huge field that's been building in the women's division for weeks and culminated in an 8-woman tornado tag match. As expected, this was chaotic and disorganised, but it didn't stop it from being enjoyable. Nightingale got the win for her team and a huge powerbomb to 4, and I just hope it leads to something bigger down the line. 6 out of 10. Moving on into the main card, and Cage and Cope were shown walking backstage and running into familiar faces before their entrance. Dax and the Axe and a patriarch started with a standard collar elbow tie-up. Harwood got the first takedown with a shoulder tackle, and he added insult to injury by walking across Cage's back. Cope and Wheeler tagged in, and Wheeler spat right at his former friend to get some heat. Both teams were taking their time easing into this one. It took a couple of minutes before the pace quickened. Cage spent some time taking damage due to FTRs preventing him from tagging Copeland a few times. White Cope got the tag. He took the fight to both members of FTR. He even did a 5-knuckle shoulder to pay Cena back for his reference to the spear. Cage and Cope locked in a simultaneous sharpshooters at one point. Cash had to slap some sense into Dax to prevent him from tapping out. This may not have been pedal to metal action, but it's a great example of how you put on a match without rushing. They took their time, sold big moves, and picked up the pace when necessary. Stokely pulled the ref out of the ring to prevent a pin, which brought out Beth Phoenix to take him down with a spear. While the ref was distracted, FTR used the ring bell on Copeland, but he still managed to kick out at 2. After surviving a shatter machine, Cope was able to get the win with a spear, while Cage held Harwood back from breaking out the pin. Nick Wayne came out so he could provide the distraction so FTR and Saban could attack Cope and Cage. Copeland was cuffed to the ring post and had to watch FTR hit a spike pile driver on Cage. Rather than trying to run from FTR, Beth gave her husband a kiss before going after both men. This ended up being a pile driving her as Cope looked unhelpfully. The post-match angle was a clear indication this feud's far from over. The crowd gave tons of heat to FTR for attacking Beth. So yeah, a really hot angle to finish, and I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. We then got Big Bill taking on Eddie Kingston in his first match in over a year. The Toronto crowd gave Mad King a warm welcome. Kingston got right in Bill's face and the match got started right away, unloading with chops on the big man, but one big shot from Bill put him on the mat. Even though it took Kingston a little while to begin making a real comeback, he never stopped talking trash. Most of the match was dominated by the 7-foot monster. Keith cheered him on as he kept finding ways to stall Kingston's momentum, beating the canvas. Kingston hit one of his signature spinning back fists, but Bill got right back up and mocked him like it was nothing. The second one he hit Bill down for the count, but he barely connects, and even the announcers acknowledged it like a miss. It was entertaining, but nobody's going to call it a 5-star match. Keith and Bill attacked Kingston until Hook came out to make the save. Ending with Hook and Kingston as a potential alliance is an interesting way to go. So yeah, an okay first match for Kingston, but I think there's definitely still more to come. This alone, I'll give it a 5 out of 10. We then got MJF versus Mark Briscoe in a takes and tax match. The former CMLL light heavyweight champion came out first for his table and tax match against Briscoe. The ring had a bucket of tax in each corner and several tables surrounding it. The Chicken immediately poured a ton of tax into the ring before he and MJF made contact. MJF tried to leave, but Briscoe brought him back to the ring. Both men tried to slam each other onto the tax, but they kept countering to avoid it. MJF used the ref as a shield to sucker Briscoe in so he could slam him for the first time. He drove Mark's head into the same tax to add extra punishment and cause the first blood to spill. MJF forced a bunch of tacks into Briscoe's mouth and then decked him into the face. When MJF was finally dropped on the tacks with a back body drop, the crowd and Danielson cheered. This was designed to be a bloody fight, not a good wrestling match, so judging something like this is tricky. Was this good on a fundamental level? To some degree. Was it a good series of violent spots? Absolutely, but nobody will call this the best match on the card, but it was the most memorable for a lot of people. Both men did a fantastic job using the stipulations to create big moments. MJF started looking desperate after a tombstone onto a tack-covered chair and didn't put the Chicken away. Briscoe put MJF through a table with a froggy bow and then hit a second, and he finally finished with a Dre Jiller for the pin and a win. Yeah, big win for Mark Briscoe, it has to be said. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. Ricochet and GOA then took on Lashley, Benjamin and MVP, who was having his first match since he defeated Al Snow in an indie event in May and the first in AEW since Jan. MVP started for his team, but he wanted Ricochet instead of Khan. Ricochet obliged for a minute but tagged out before anything could actually happen. Khan and MVP grappled and tagged some shots before Benjamin tagged in. After Lashley tagged in, Ricochet came in and mocked him. He tried to unload him with some body shots that appeared to have no effect. The Almighty held him up for a vertical suplex for a long time. The Hurt Syndicate then had the upper hand until the Demand cornered MVP and kept an isolator for a while once they worked on his bad leg. Once Benjamin got the tag, he started suplexing and throwing all three opponents around the ring, sometimes two at a time. A solid and competitive match, even with the trios title not being defended on the show by the Ops. It was nice to see the division get some attention with this bout. All six men worked hard to make sure this was exciting enough to follow the mayhem that came before it. Ricochet ended up getting a win for his team by pinning MVP in a somewhat surprising outcome. I'll give it a 6 out of 10. CBS title was then on the line when Riho challenged Mercedes Moné in the next matchup. This is coming less than 2 weeks after Melee lost the tag match to Riho and Windsor, so she was looking to prove the former women's champion it was a fluke. They traded some roll-ups and attempted submissions right from the start, but neither woman could gain a clear advantage. The crowd chanted both women as Moné grabbed the bottom rope to escape a half crab. The pace slowed down way in the middle as the CEO was putting Riho through a lot of punishment. The crowd was still chanting and cheering, but you could tell people were kind of waiting for something big to happen. The match had good moments, but as a whole it fell short of what we know both women are capable of in the ring. If this had been a main event of Dynamite, it would have felt like a bigger deal. It picked up, but not really enough. The CEO retained the title after raking the eyes and then hitting her finisher for the win. I'll give it a 5 out of 10. Before we then moved on to Okada versus Takeshita versus Mascara Dorado, and it got started with all three men going after each other. Takeshita was out of the ring, so Okada and Okada traded moves for a bit. Once Takeshita was back in, Okada took a breather at ringside. Even though both men are members of the Khan's family, it really felt like Okada and Takeshita were doing anything to help each other. It's pure competition, making it more exciting. They kept a steady pace throughout. It never felt like there was a lull in the action unless someone had a submission locked in. It definitely felt like Dorado was the worst odds in this bout, but it was also exciting to watch. It took a long time before Takeshita and Okada had a longer sequence together, but once they did, the crowd was loving it. The second half of the match was significantly more exciting than the first. They did a good job making us question who would win. Dorado was the star of the match, which is saying a lot considering the calibre of his other competitors. All three men came close to winning in a few times, but it finally ended with Okada hitting a Rainmaker on Dorado for the win. And yeah, this gets an 8 out of 10 from me. Really good stuff. Great win for Okada. Another really good match for this title. So yeah, good stuff. We then got Jon Moxley versus Darby Allin, the 5th coffin match in AEW history, and yeah, Allin had a perfect record. As Mox was making his way through the crowd, Allin appeared out of nowhere, attacking to get the match started. The Risk Taker immediately hit a big dive off the top of a doorway leading out of the arena. They fought further up in the crowd before making their way back to the ringside. Mox started to bleed after Allin bit into his ears for several seconds. The rest of the Death Riders came out and helped for a bit, but Mox eventually sent everyone away. He brought one of the caskets in the ring and slammed it shut on Allin's hands. A few minutes later, Allin returned the favour and did it to both his hands. We all know this would be a bloody violent fight from both these guys that live for this kind of thing, but whether that's a good thing or not is up to you. The live crowd was definitely having a good time of it. Danielson handed Allin a duffel bag that contained some sort of kind of plastic bag Danielson was suffocated with. Allin used it as cover Moxley's head and then hit code red. Pac made a surprising return and ended up sending Allin over the top rope into one of the caskets with a powerbomb. Pac then put Allin into a casket and Mox closed it to get the win. The ending of the match might not have been exciting for the rest of it, but having Pac is never a bad thing. For what it was, this was a good time. 6 out of 10. We then got Tony Storm v Thekla versus Jamie Hayter versus Chris Statlander, and Thekla was first out. All 4 women had momentum coming to this one, but Storm got the loudest reaction. Storm and Thekla paired up for a while Stat and Hayter fought, but these pairs didn't last long. It came down to Stat and Hayter trading shots in the middle of the ring. All 4 women ended up fighting at ringside, and everyone took some big risks and bumps. The match had an unfortunate placement on the card. It came right after the coffin match and right before the ladder. The crowd was into it, but it had this match happened earlier. It felt like it could have been better. That being said, it was a good performance from all. They brought a lot of energy and made sure to keep the crowd's attention. Hayter and Storm had the most history between them and did a good job addressing that. What nobody expected though was Statlander winning the belt with a pinning combination. This was a great match, but the unpredictable was really made it stand out. Harley came out to celebrate with her friend for a nice moment. 7 out of 10. Moving on into Brodido versus Young Bucks versus Jet Speed versus the Callis family. Alexander and Hechicero took control early thanks to some solid teamwork. It didn't take long for them to clear in, but Jet Speed cut off their momentum with some fast-paced offense. Every team had moments they were in the driver's seat during the first few minutes. For a minute, with so many participants, they ensured the action was easy to follow. The Bucks and the Callis family formed a temporary alliance, and that eventually fell when Matt and Nick tried to win behind their back. So many ladder matches occurred across the multiple promotions that it's challenging to come up with anything new, but they managed to incorporate a few elements that felt unique to this bout. Everyone clearly put thought into setting up some innovative spots. This was chaos in the best possible sense. Everyone took several big bumps, and it didn't feel like there was a single weak link. After several close calls, Brodido pulled down the titles to retain. Jack Perry returned after the match, attacking the Young Bucks. We then saw a video of him being the one to wake up Luchasaurus, who was in the ring when the lights came back on. He chokes down both Bucks before throwing away his kill switch belt and hugging his former tag partner. Tarzan Boy began playing in the arena, and the crowd sang along with it. A great moment. I've missed that entrance music, and I've missed the Perry and Luchasaurus together as well. So yeah, a great way to end a fun little segment. 8 out of 10 from me. We then got Adam Page versus Carl Fletcher. There was a stipulation put in place that if the Protostar cheats or anyone interferes, he'll be stripped of the TNT title. The opponents came together in the middle of the ring and talked a little trash before going for the first lockout. The first few matches before this was going as pure mayhem, so they set themselves apart by making it more traditional. However, once they to the fight in the ring, Fletcher used a chair to hit a big dive over the barricade to take Hangman down. It may have done more damage to him before Page was first to his feet. For the next several minutes, the Protostar seemed to have the upper hand more often than not. Hangman kept finding ways to get in bursts of offense, but it felt like Fletcher had control for longer. They paced this match well, they slowed down to sell, and they sped up to get the crowd excited again. The big spots felt like they meant something because they weren't just moving from one thing to the next. Fletcher hit a brainbuster to put Page through the timekeeper's table, but both men were down for a long time afterwards. When they got back in the ring, Fletcher hit 2 running kicks followed by another brainbuster, but couldn't get the win. A few moments later, Hangman put Fletcher through a different table with a Deadeye. The bump looked nasty for Fletcher, but he was able to continue. They continued to fight for several minutes, trading several falls. Hangman appeared to have nothing left as a confident Fletcher stood there and no-sold his strikes, but he was able to hit the Deadeye from the middle rope before nailing the buckshot to get the pin and the win. Gets an 8 out of 10 from me. Great stuff. Great match. Good win for Hangman, but I think also really elevated Fletcher in defeat too. AEW rarely fails to deliver with pay-per-views, and this year's All Out with no exception. Every singles match was kind of good to great, but the surprises made it memorable, whether it be Beth Phoenix, the return of Jungle Boy or Pac, etc, etc. Just on the whole, a really, really good show of wrestling, and gets an 8 out of 10 from me. Video. Thanks very much for watching. Remember to like, share, subscribe, follow us on our socials, link in the description below for daily wrestling news, meme and content. Subscribe to our other channels on screen right now, that'd be greatly appreciated. Thanks very much for watching. Peace out.